Hello, welcome back to 17 Square Meters Garden. In today's video I want to share with you what I do with my spring bulbs once they are done blooming. It's probably the most commonly asked question that I get, what you do with your spring bulbs. And although I do have a video already dedicated to that topic, a video that I recorded last year, it's called What to do with your spring bulbs once they are done blooming. But that video I recorded early in spring last year, so I only talked about what you should do to make your bulbs bloom again next year. But right now we are in May and I'm ready to clean up my bulbs, so I want to show you what's the actual process, how it actually looks. And because I do different things with my bulbs, some of them I keep, some of them I get rid of. Some of them I keep permanently in pots, some of them I'm storing. So I thought that might be useful for you to see what I do, so that maybe you can learn something new, or you can find some ideas for your own balcony garden. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so first example, if you want to keep your bulbs for next year, because of course you don't have to, you can just get rid of them and you can plant new ones every year. But if you grow some beautiful variety that you really want to keep, like for example, these ones I'm keeping because they were so gorgeous. It is daffodil, sunny side up. They were double blooms, they were really beautiful. So to make sure that they are gonna bloom, first you have to cut the spent blooms off. And you can do it either by cutting just the flower itself, or you can follow the bloom stalk down to the soil level and you can cut the entire bloom stalk off. And some people say that it's better to just cut the flower off, because if you leave the bloom stalk, then you leave more of that green surface, more of the foliage, and your bulb will accumulate energy quicker and better. But I don't know, I didn't see really any difference, but if you prefer, you can either cut the flower off or just the entire bloom stalk off, as you prefer. So let's cut all the flowers off. Okay, so right now, once you cut the spent blooms off, you have to allow your bulbs the time to charge, to accumulate energy to be able to bloom next year. So ideally, you would wait until the foliage turns completely yellow and wilts. But unfortunately, it can take a while. It can take 6 to 8 weeks, and in my part shade it takes even more than that. But the minimum that you should allow them is 6 weeks. So from this moment, from right now, when I cut the spent blooms off, 6 weeks and they should bloom for you next year. People also ask, do you water your bulbs or do you just let them dry out? And no, I don't let them dry out, because they are photosynthesizing, they are accumulating energy. So not only I water them, but I also fertilize them. So fast forward, here I have an example of how your leaves, how the foliage of your bulbs will look like 6 or even more weeks after you cut the spent blooms off. I have Narcissus replete in here. They bloomed at the end of February, the beginning of March. So as you can see, right now we are in May, so it's been over 2 months and the foliage is still green. I tie them up, you can do it, because otherwise the leaves, they don't look very aesthetically pleasing, because they are just flopped, and that doesn't really look attractive. So as you can see, the leaves are still green, but because it's been 6 weeks already, I'm gonna cut them back anyway, because of course I want to use these pots for my summer flowers. Okay, so it's pretty simple. You take the bundle. I have some plant tag of what plant I'm gonna grow in here, but you just cut them back at the soil level. When the bulbs are really fully charged, you don't even have to cut them. You can just pull them and they come out really easily. So as you can see, there are still green stems above the soil level, but I will just leave the pot like this for a few days. It will dry out and it will be perfectly fine, and in a week or so I will be able to plant some summer flowers on top. So yeah, as I just mentioned, I leave the bulbs and I'm gonna plant summer flowers on top of them. It won't be possible with all the bulbs. If you planted small bulbs, like for example crocus, fritillaria, pushkinia, chinodoxa, or those little iris that bloom at the beginning of the year, those bulbs are really small. So if you have them spread everywhere in your pot, they are very close to the soil surface, so you won't be able to plant summer flowers on top of them without disturbing the bulbs. And dig them out and store them, because as I mentioned, it's not gonna be really possible for you to plant on top of them. Okay, one other example of what I do with my spring bulbs is here. For example, you do not have enough space, you have only small balcony with only a couple of pots, and you can't wait 8 weeks for them to charge, but in the same time you don't really want to get rid of them, because you paid for those bulbs, so it's a little bit of a shame to just throw them away. So what you can do, you can dig the bulbs out with their leaves and you can transplant them somewhere else, either to some garden or to some other pot. And that's what I did. I had tete-a-tete daffodils. I had them in a beautiful galvanized container where I wanted to plant oxalis bulbs. So I dug them out and I transplanted them around my hydrangea, because my hydrangea paniculata is in a large pot. So I thought that it would be a really cool idea, because early in the spring next year the hydrangea will have just bare branches, so it would be lovely to have some pop of yellow color early in the spring and to have those tete-a-tete daffodils fill in this pot and bloom beautifully so that the pot doesn't look empty. Okay, another example. So what you can do is, for example, here I have daffodils that I'm gonna keep because both of them were lovely, two lovely varieties. But I made a little bit of space in between the bulbs and I already planted my begonia tubers. So begonia tubers are already sprouting, so that won't bother the bulbs because they have enough space, they receive sunlight, so it's perfectly fine. And the bulbs, they have time to charge, and once they charge, I'm gonna just cut them back, and then the begonia will have enough space to develop. And because begonias are not frost hardy, by the end of the season I will probably dig the tubers out. So next spring, when the daffodils will start to germinate again and will start to grow and bloom, the begonias will be already gone and they will have enough room to perform. Well, these were a few examples of how to keep your bulbs permanently in pots, what are the options. And now let me show you how to actually dig them out and store them when you do not want to keep them in your pots permanently. Here I have my crocus everywhere in this pot, so it will be impossible to plant anything on top. And as you can see, they are really nicely charged. The leaves start to turn brown, and that's exactly what you want. You want them to be brown and to be wilted. Although the daffodils that I had here, it's a pipit daffodils, I had 90 of them planted all along. They are not charged because they were just like last week, they were still blooming. So that's a bummer because that's 90 daffodils, and I'm gonna do something experimental, something that I have never done before. So I've seen Jack Barnwell, which is actually my favorite gardener and landscape designer. He gardens on Mackinac Island, and I've seen in one of his videos where they were cleaning up the spring beds and he just pulled the daffodils out, like literally pulled them out with the roots and everything, and he left them on the soil surface to just dry out, and so that the leaves, they kind of send the energy to the bulb, and he said that it works. So I'm not sure, I have never done this before, so I'm gonna give it a try, and I'm gonna keep the daffodils, although I will not replant them on my balcony. I will probably give them to my grandma, to her garden, because I wouldn't want to replant all of them and after to find out that they didn't bloom. That would be, you know, a little bit of a disappointment. Okay, so that's the bulbs that I just dug out of that one pot, and again, I'm gonna repeat, I know that I repeat myself a lot, but just to make it clear, these are crocus bulbs. Well, technically they are corms, but these are all the crocus corms that I dug out. So these are fully charged. As you could see, the leaves were completely brown. You don't want to put them in a bag immediately after you take them out of the soil, because of course they are still a little bit wet, a little bit moist. So you don't want to risk that they will rot. So once they dry out a little, I will clean them off, just brush them off and remove all those unnecessary roots and stuff, and I'm gonna store them in a paper bag. A few words still about bulbs. Should you dig them out or should you keep them in your pots? What are the advantages and disadvantages? So if you keep them in your pots, well, that's less work for you, because you just have to clean the leaves, cut the leaves off, and then you are good to go and you can plant summer stuff on top. But the risk, of course, here is that, especially if you're a beginner gardener, because beginner gardeners tend to overwater their plants, so the risk is that your bulbs will rot. So of course you have to be very careful, and maybe if you're a beginner gardener, that's not maybe the best option for you. I don't know, that depends on you, depends on how you take care of your plants, what soil you have, what container you have. For example, most of my bulbs are in terracotta. When you plant plants in terracotta, the terracotta can release water and doesn't hold on to so much water, so much moisture, so it's less likely that you will overwater your plants. Also, I have a good quality potting mix that has perlite in it that helps with drainage and aeration, and I have never even once, and I do it since many years, I have never even once had bulbs that would rot. And I planted summer flowers on top of them, like I planted coleus and petunias and stuff like this, plants that need a lot of water during summer. Because I figured that in the garden, when you plant your bulbs in garden, you don't dig them out every year. You keep them in the soil and you plant plants around them. They receive rainwater, they receive nutrients when you fertilize your plants. So I tried to replicate the same in containers, and it seems to work really well. Although not every bulbs are worth keeping. For example, tulips, you will probably hear it very often. Tulips are not worth keeping because they don't tend to come back very well. Some varieties do, but a lot of varieties don't. So when you dig your bulbs out, the advantage is that of course you can replant them later on as you want, because you are gonna replant them in fall. So you can change the compositions. For example, if you grew different varieties and now you want to mix them into one container, you can do that. Of course, don't forget to tag your plants, to write what varieties these are, so that you know what you are keeping and that you know what you are gonna replant in fall. Okay, I think I've said it all. I spoke a lot in this video. If you have any additional questions about bulbs, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments or DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to help if I can, of course. But yeah, I hope that this video gave you some ideas on what you can do with your spring bulbs. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!
If you're gonna eat the worms, at least don't spread the soil everywhere. Come on! Out! Out you go! You're naughty! What do I do with you now? Go!